Morning, everybody. Today we are going to continue with the packet on page 19. This is our last day for the packet, and I'm going to check it tomorrow. So you need to get everything done in your packet by tomorrow, and we'll be talking more about that in just a moment. But go ahead and turn to page 19. Go ahead and start class right now and talk a little bit about how does Dr. King use rhetorical tools effectively. Which tool do you think he uses the most effectively? Out of all the ones we've been studying, which one do you think, boy, that was really cool? I like how he used that. Anaphora, that was the one we talked about yesterday. Anaphora, the many instances of anaphora in the speech, which makes us helps us remember the speech better. Any other tools you want to mention that you thought, man, that was effective? Parallelism. That whole thing about parallelism matched with antithesis was pretty dang cool. About opposites being together in harmony. That was pretty neat. Any others anyone wants to mention? Did you find a lot of metaphors? There were a ton in the speech, weren't there? And so today we're going to keep talking about metaphors, but I'm going to pause for just a moment and think big picture, okay? Writers use tools. Is the word tool itself kind of a metaphor? What do tools do, like if you're building something? What do tools help you do? Ainsley? What do tools do? Okay, you're thinking about writing. That's excellent. Very good. They help you be more descriptive. What if I was building a house? Put things together. Depending on the tool, it does different things. My favorite tool is the hammer. I guess I like to beat the heck out of things. I don't know. I also use in my house an awful lot a screwdriver to kind of tighten things down. I'm the painter at my house. Coach Raines hates to paint. And so I'm the one that knows I know where all the paintbrushes are. I know where all the paint cans are. I know how to mix up the paint. I know how to stir it up. And I use that paintbrush quite a bit. So, we've looked at my bulletin board a few times back there. A bunch of the tools are symbolic, right? They're kind of metaphors for things writers do. And I like what Ainsley said. We're going to go with what Ainsley said. It helps you be more descriptive, especially metaphors, don't you think? The metaphor is that paintbrush that paints that image that helps us see the speech better. And if you're standing in a crowd and listening to a speech for 20 minutes, every time you see a little picture in your mind, it's like watching a movie as you're listening, and it helps the crowd listen better. So really, that's what tools do, especially these metaphors. Before we begin on page 17, I want you to, do we actually have room on the back of the packet? We don't. Dang it. Go to the cover of your packet. Go to the cover. That's the only page. And on the inside cover, I think that's a blank page. Good. We found a blank page. Go to the inside cover. And I'm going to remind you of what an analytical paragraph has within it. All right? And I want you to write all of this down on that page. You can write it as big as you want. I want all of this written down. I've got it all written up here on the board. Just start jotting it down. I'm going to ask you questions as you jot it down. I know you can do two things at once. All paragraphs are not structured the same. If I was just asking you to write a paragraph to describe your day yesterday, you really wouldn't need evidence like textual evidence to do that. You really wouldn't have to have a perfect two chunks. You would probably have a lot of descriptor words. You would probably have some anecdotes to tell a story about your day, about the little things that happened. You might even have some commentary where you talk about, oh my gosh, it just killed me to have to, take that test, but I'm also so happy because I did really well on it. You might have just, a little bit of CD and commentary, but it maybe wouldn't be structured the same way as an analytical paragraph. An analytical paragraph is structured pretty tightly. It's pretty formal, okay? And we're doing this on purpose. I'll be honest, this isn't the only way to write an analytical paragraph. And as you grow up and you go over to upper school, you're definitely going to learn that there's other ways to do this. But why am I torturing you with this really, really tight structure? I'm going to bother Ned on this one. Ned, why am I torturing you with this really formal structure? Why is it good for you in 7th grade? So we can what? Okay, get into a habit of at least using all the parts, get into the habit of beginning this way, but as you grow up, you might actually adapt this a little bit, okay? I'm going to start off with the topic sentence. I'm going to write this down up there so that you can see a topic sentence is what? What two parts make up a topic sentence? Let's see if you can remember. A topic plus?
Opinion.
Okay, good. Write that down. Okay, good job. A topic sentence is a topic plus an opinion. Then I have the first chunk, and then I have a transition word, then I have the second chunk, and then we end with a closing sentence. Now I'm going to pause for a moment. CDs and CMs, what's the difference? What's a CD? Concrete detail. And a synonym for CD is? A fact or textual evidence. Okay, so I'm going to write up here textual evidence because that's what we're going to be using today, okay? Textual evidence. Now a CM, what is that? Sam, can you tell me a synonym of CM? It's commentary, but what is it really? Opinion. And that's your opinion on why that evidence or what that evidence is doing. It's the analysis, okay? It's what makes this an analytical paragraph. It's the analysis and the opinion. It's the insight that you're giving me about your evidence. You're kind of explaining your evidence, okay? I'm going to write that word too. I could have written explanation, but it's your chance to explain the evidence, okay? We're going to write those chunks today in class. I need you now to turn back to page 17. Turn to page 17. Now I'm going to do this a little bit backwards. I'm going to show you what your ultimate goal is going to be, and then I'm going to have you go back and pick your evidence. I think it was actually beneficial to me to know that the evidence needed to be really, really rich in detail. And I think watching the example of, when I write the example chunks for you today, you're going to see, oh, I want some really good metaphors. And I think you're going to be a little more picky when you pick your evidence if you see the end result. So right now on this page, let's read the prompt together. I have a dream speech. How does Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. use metaphors to convince the American people to support his dream of freedom and equality? Okay, what word do you think you should circle right now that kind of shows you what you're looking for as we begin this process? What word stands out? Metaphors. I would circle metaphors because you have to use metaphors in this. Especially metaphors that do what? That convince the American people of what? His dream of freedom and equality, okay? That they support that dream of freedom and equality. All right. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you the bad example. And I think sometimes giving you a bad example is the best thing I can do for you so that you don't do it. You know, isn't that nice to know what not to do? So right now I want you to write down this piece of evidence just the way that I did, even though there's a lot of things wrong with it, okay? Go ahead and write down this piece of evidence as a bad example. ... a great beacon light of hope. In the instructions right here, I ask you to introduce the text. I ask you to embed the textual evidence. If you don't remember what embed means, it means that you have words before you actually have the text. You have some of your own words introducing, it's basically introducing the text, okay? So I want you to raise your hand. Tell me, what did I do wrong? Someone tell me all the things I did wrong here. Yes, Santi.
You didn't cite it.
I didn't cite it. Okay, good. I should have put at the end King and the page number. Yeah, thank you for noticing that. What else?
You should put it in quotes and not just say ...
Right. I should begin with quotes right here. Quote there and quote at the end. What else, Ned? Embed it. Now, I'm going to ask you to write down all the things I did wrong. did not introduce the text. Next X, did not put quotation marks around the text. And the last X, did not cite the text. Okay, now that we've looked at the textual side of the chunk, basically this is the text side of the chunk. Now let's look at the commentary side of the chunk. And you remember that your commentary should be 2 parts. Does it have to be 2 sentences? No, 2 parts. 2 insightful ideas about the evidence. So this doesn't have to just be 2 sentences. It could be as many sentences as you need it to be. But 2 really insightful things to say about your metaphor. Okay, copy down my horrible commentary. Remember, this is the bad example. Here's my horrible commentary. This beacon represents the Emancipation Proclamation which freed the slaves. Is that true? Yeah, it is. That is why it brought hope to the slaves. What's wrong with it, Mia? What's wrong with this commentary?
I don't have an opinion.
I don't really have a very good opinion. It's rather vague. I agree with you. Claire, what else is wrong?
You pretty much stated the same thing twice.
Which part? Like in the commentary?
Both sentences kind of give the same thing.
Yeah, it does. It's redundant and vague. Anything else that you can see wrong with this? Now I'm gonna show you something, and you're gonna go, oh yeah, that stinks, and you're gonna give me a low grade. And I will give anyone a low grade that does the same awful thing I did there. Okay, so let me show you what else. First X is, I did not really analyze the metaphor. What's the metaphor in the in that text? What's the metaphor? What am I comparing? The great beacon, light of hope, to the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, did I even talk about the metaphor? No, I just said what it represented, which was the Emancipation Proclamation, but I didn't talk about why in the world did King choose to describe the Emancipation Proclamation as like a lighthouse light. That is huge. The fact that he uses that metaphor paints this beautiful picture of a lighthouse, and I don't talk about it? I'm crazy. Okay, and then also I used repeated words. What are some of the words that are repeated? Yeah, slaves especially. And I know it's a rough draft, and you'll catch those mistakes too, but be aware of it, okay? And then the last one, just vague analysis. Like Claire said, I said the same thing basically twice. It was just sort of vague and redundant. Okay. Vague, V-A-G-U-E. My V looks a little odd there. I may have to want you to write down the good example. We're going to focus on the concrete detail side first. I want you to, I'm going to be in your way for just a moment, okay? Here is the good concrete detail. Dr. King describes the Emancipation Proclamation as a great beacon light of hope. King won, period. Or I could have written, at the beginning of the speech, King uses the metaphor, a great beacon light of hope, to describe the Emancipation Proclamation. King won, period. I really am kind of torturing you a little bit today, making you write 2 examples. But to be honest, I want you to see 2 different ways to embed evidence. It's not hard. You just have to remember to do it. And I think you've actually gotten better at it since we wrote the first day analytical paragraph. And we wrote the research paper. You had to embed evidence in it, but you have to embed your evidence and introduce it and quote it and cite it. Yes? Know that some of the type of writing that I ask you to do in here is pretty advanced, and I'm always really proud of you for catching on so quickly. Some people don't think 7th graders can do this stuff. My opinion is that if we show you examples of how to do it, you're able to do it. And so you've got some good examples here of what not to do and what to do. Now let's look at the commentary side of the paragraph, okay? And see if I did a better job analyzing the metaphor and how it talks about King's ultimate dream purpose, okay? So let's look at that side. All right, my commentary. A beacon is a light that gives hope to ships lost in a storm. The Emancipation Proclamation provided hope to a country lost in the darkness of slavery. this beacon light, notice I put quotes around it. Can someone tell me why? Why?
Because like that's exactly what he said. Beacon light.
That's right. It's actually the direct quote. The great beacon light. Okay, beacon light. So I put quotes around it. Shines into the sadness, the oppression, and the evil that slavery created. But King emphasizes that as a country, America had found its way to freedom in 1863, but chooses to still be stuck in the dark of segregation in 1963. So they had the light in 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation was the light, but we're still in the dark. We're choosing not to follow that light or to let it shine, right? I could have written more commentary. I ran out of room. Okay, so write down my commentary. As you're writing, I want you to notice it really is important to pick a good metaphor so you actually have something to say about it. Do you understand? You don't want to just pick the shortest metaphor. You don't want to just pick any old metaphor that you come across first. You really want to look at all the metaphors that you underlined yesterday and pick ones that you think, oh my gosh, yeah, that one, I could say a lot about that one. That one's insightful to me. That one really has a depth or a complexity that will allow me to write some pretty good commentary about it and relate it back to this idea of, you know, freedom and what is this dream and how is this metaphor helping enhance this speech, okay? So you really want to pick your metaphors wisely. I'll be quiet and let you finish copying, and then we're going to talk about choosing your metaphors. People are finished, you know, writing the commentary here, maybe look at your speech and decide, you know, man, what metaphors might be really powerful to write about. And there's not a right or wrong answer. It's just basically, can you really analyze that metaphor and give me some great insight? So kind of look over all your annotated parts of your speech and decide what part really is powerful. You do not need to copy down my examples. I wrote examples to show you what I did with them, okay? I really did know I was going to have to write an analytical paragraph, so I was really picky when I picked my metaphors. And you do need to pick 3, okay? 23, 24, and 25. And you'll fill in yours in just a moment. Now, I want to show you. I wrote my first one up there. This momentous decree came as a great beacon of light of hope to millions of Negro slaves, and I cited it, okay? Now, I think the important part here is that I want to focus in on what I wrote. I went to the metaphor and I started kind of describing the metaphor. When I heard the word beacon light, I thought, oh my gosh, it's bright. It's shining in the darkness. It helps ships that are lost. That's what beacons do. And so I'm thinking, this is literally what that word does. How is that like the Emancipation Proclamation? So do you see how thinking about literally what the description of the concrete side of the metaphor is helps you maybe compare it to what the comparison is, the metaphor. So let's look at like number 24. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. And I wrote up above summer, which is comparing summer to discontent, okay? And I wrote, the heat makes things die. So what's dying because of this discontent? Maybe their hope is dying. Maybe their passion is dying. Maybe their desire to even put up a fight is dying, okay? And then I went down, and it's an extended metaphor, and I had to talk about autumn. Autumn is cool and refreshing, right? Okay, so maybe if things could change, there would be an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. That's what freedom and equality would do. It would be refreshing. It would be a time where you didn't have to suffer as much. And I did the same thing down here with this one. And some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. And I described those words. Okay, what I want you to do right now, I want you to fill in your 3 choices. Go. do 23, 24, and 25. Fill in your 3 choices. And then you are going to begin writing your first chunk. Okay, actually, you know what? Let's just choose 2. Let's just do 23 and 24. You know why? You're only going to use 2 in your dialectical journal because you're going to have 2 chunks. You're going to have one metaphor chunk and then another metaphor chunk. So let's just do 2 of them. That'll cut down on your work, okay? Just do 2. Depending on where you find your information, on which page, you'll write King and then the page number. Beacon Light of Hope was found on page 1. This one about the summer and autumn was found on page 1, but this last one about the police brutality was King 2. We're only picking 2 pieces of evidence, and when you're done writing those down, immediately go to page number 18 and begin writing your first chunk. One side of that little journal entry is the CD side, the textual evidence side, and then the other side is the commentary side. And so you're building your paragraph, basically the parts of your paragraph right now. Yes, Claire?
The journal entry is page 20.
The journal entry is page 20. Okay, page 20, that last back page.